Good afternoon and welcome. As you all know, we have a lot of very interesting businesses here in Petaluma, many of which maybe we don't know all that much about. If you recall, a few weeks ago, we had Lyle Chinkin from Sonoma Technology. Everybody was so excited about what he was sharing. And I go back to that committee of the Chamber of Commerce that interviewed local businesses. And when the committee met and we were reviewing names, Dharma Trading came up and half the room raised their hand and said, "Oh, I want to interview Dharma Trading." So I happened to meet David under just mutual friends and said, "You have such an interesting company. Would you come and speak to our Rotary? This is a very historic Petaluma company, and David is going to tell you all about." I'd like to welcome David Goff from Dharma Trading.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. Again, my name is David. I'm from Dharma Trading Company. Thank you, Suzanne, for inviting me here today. Thank you to the Rotary Club for putting this event on, and of course, thank you all for giving me a few minutes to tell you a little bit about our business. Before we get started, I want to tell you just the basics about our business, in case you aren't aware of what we are. So again, it's Dharma Trading Company. What we are is a textile craft supplies e-commerce business. So that's to say that we offer fabric, dyes, fabrics, yarns, silks, paints, and all the tools and accessories that one might need to silk paint, tie-dye, batik, or in any way put color on fabric. Now, to understand our business a little bit and perhaps what makes us a little different or a little special and what's given us the ability to last 50 years, you have to understand my father, Isaac, a little. So my father, Isaac, was born in New York to second-generation Russian Jewish immigrants. His grandparents came to the U.S. to escape the pogroms, the persecution of Jews in Russia. His family wasn't wealthy. When his father brought home meat from the butcher, it was a good day. And my father's father, my grandfather, was a little bit of a wannabe wise guy. He was always working some kind of angle, but never very successfully. My grandmother was what I like to think of as a stereotypical Russian mom. She was hard as nails, but ready to feed you at any moment. My father was the youngest of three. He had an older brother and an oldest sister. But being an old school family, they were never very close. So my father was pretty much on his own from an early age to make something of himself. So in the early 60s, my father was in his early 20s. And where else would you want to be in the 60s in your early 20s than Berkeley, California? That's where it was all happening. So my dad packed up his few belongings and his dog, and with a good friend named Hamilton, he drove out west. And this is where the cute little story occurred. As he and his friend were driving west, they passed a car with two similarly aged gentlemen in it. And a little while later, that car passed them. Anyway, this went on for a little while, these two cars passing each other. Eventually, as one of the cars passed, my father made the, at the time, international sign language symbol for, "Hey, you want to smoke some weed?" So these two cars that had kind of randomly encountered each other on the highway pulled off on the side of the road, and these four early 20s gentlemen smoked a joint together. And those are now his best friends to this day. In fact, my father's in Victoria, BC right now visiting with them. So it's just odd how the world turns, if you will. Now, it may sound from that story and the one I'm about to tell that my father was doing the traditional thing that you did in the 60s, which is drugs, lots and lots of drugs. But although that was in with the whole tune in, turn on, and drop out movement, it was never really what my father, Isaac, was into. He wasn't really into the recreational drug use. He experimented, of course. It was the 60s after all. And this is where he likes to say that it all started with an acid trip. So his experiences on LSD led him to feel that there was more to this world than what we can see and feel, that there are other higher planes of existence. He got to see through a crack in this material corporal world into the beyond. And he tried to draw that crack, and this is his drawing. So, while Isaac found that drugs could act as an elevator to lift you up and give you a glimpse into these other existences, if you will, they provide no meaningful path to get there. They can give you a glimpse, but they have no purpose in actually opening these worlds to you. So my father realized that he needed a spiritual path that would lead him there step by step. And he found one that fit him and his personality, which is Subud. I don't know if anyone here knows what Subud is, but although it sounds perhaps a little culty, it's really not. It's very innocuous. It's not a religion. There are members of all faiths in Subud. It's basically a meditation practice or a surrender practice. It's the practice of quieting the mind and surrendering yourself to God or the life force or what have you, and allowing that force to guide you and receiving its guidance. Now, we mention this only because it led to an epiphany for my father. He came to realize that we're all born with innate talents, gifts from God, if you will. They come to you through no effort of your own. They are gifts. And in my father's case, it was a feel for business and a knack for organization. He understood that these gifts come with an obligation to use them for the betterment of himself and the world and mankind. So in that moment, he saw visually that if he used these talents, that his life would work. It would be like the iron filings demonstration you may have seen in science class back in the day, where a magnet will cause iron filings all to align in one direction, and the magnetic field flows through them. So with these gifts, he realized that if he would use these gifts, the God-given talents would align all aspects of his life and allow the power of God or the life force to flow through him, and he would become very powerful. So with this understanding, Isaac endeavored to use his gifts to start a business, and he decided to open a store in Berkeley, California, and chose the name Dharma Trading Company. It's a good time to... A little ahead of myself. The name Dharma Trading Co. came from Isaac's understanding of the Sanskrit word Dharma, as meaning the right path or following God's guidance. What this really meant to Isaac was that it was possible to be involved in business and be successful while maintaining good ethical values and giving back to those less fortunate when possible. These guiding principles are posted on the wall near the front door to this day. And that is one note. So using $2,000 that he had earned driving a taxi and substitute teaching in New York, and $2,000 that he had borrowed from his Aunt Rose, he rented a space, built shelves, and stocked them, and just like that, the first Dharma Trading Company store opened on University Avenue in Berkeley, California in 1969. And that is a picture of the store. And this is a picture of my father in the store. He built all the shelves, stocked all the items. Now, obviously, since then, our business has grown and changed considerably. In 1972, Isaac opened another store location on 4th Street in San Rafael, which is still there to this day. Around 1975, Isaac incorporated the business and began shipping items by mail in earnest. The thinking was that if you can't get enough customers through the front door, why not go out to the customer and make it easy for them to order? And it worked. Today, we ship thousands of packages each week. Now, my father put the first Dharma catalog, mail order catalog, together himself. He wrote all the copy, placed the clip art, and even pasted each ad onto print boards himself. And he did that for years and years. I can remember as a kid, my father and mother sitting around frantically pasting all these little ads on the print boards so that the catalog could get produced on time. These days, of course, it's all done digitally. Another evolution of our business came in the late 70s when my father decided to add fiber-reactive dyes to the product offerings. Tie-dye was in, and adding dyes to the complementary products seemed like a good idea. We were selling lots of dyeable yarns and fabrics and other dry goods. And this was somewhat of a pivotal moment for the business as it set the basis for what we do to this day. Dharma trading has become synonymous with fabric dyes and tie-dye to an extent. If you've ever been to an outdoor festival or fair or farmer's market and seen someone offering tie-dye clothing, silk-painted scarves, there's a very good chance that the dye or the scarves and clothing came from us. Then, in the mid to late 90s, the retail world started to change fundamentally. The internet was just becoming a thing. Now, my father recognized that the internet would be the sales front of the business in the future. Essentially, he understood very early on that the internet would be what it is today. So, before the internet existed as we know it, before Amazon, Walmart, or Netflix, or any of this, my father created the first Dharma Trading Company website himself in the mid-90s using Dreamweaver. There's a picture of it from the vacuum machine. So obviously this is a very rudimentary website as far as today's standards go. It was just a bunch of static pages with hyperlinks. But in the mid-90s, this was a fully fledged website. Later, in the early 2000s, as the internet was really ramping up, we had a young man working in the warehouse named Sam. Sam was a basic warehouse employee. He was picking and packing orders, but he was teaching himself to code HTML at night. He wanted to advance himself. And one day Sam asked my father if he could work on the Dharma website a little, just to practice, and in exchange he would improve the site. And so my father agreed. And here we are in 2019. That same employee, Sam, is currently and still our senior web engineer. He's built our fully fledged e-commerce website. He's built our entire back-end order entry and management, inventory management systems. So today, the business employs a family of about 50 to 70 people, depending on the season. Most of whom, have been with us for more than 10 years. Many of whom have been with us for 15, 20, even 35 years. And of those employees that have left the company, we've had many of those people return to us because the new job that they left for just didn't turn out the way they wanted it. The new boss was a jerk or something of the kind. If you ask our people about their jobs, their satisfaction at work, I'm very confident that the vast majority of responses will be positive. Simply put, we treat our people the way that we want to be treated, and it pays off with low turnover and high employee loyalty. Today, Dharma Trading has customers all over the United States and Canada and other international growing markets, notably Australia and England. And if you were to ask around about our company, again, you would find that Dharma Trading has a very good reputation in the industry for being a nice, ethical company with happy employees. We receive unsolicited praise on a regular basis from customers that are just pleased with their interactions with us. Again, we feel that this is simply down to treating customers the way that we want to be treated. For example, when you call Dharma Trading, the first thing you hear is a human voice. There are no button menus, no press this button to get to that department, or press this to continue in French. None of that. It would cost less to have a button menu, but my father and I, don't like button menus, and so we don't have one. Essentially, we treat our customers the way that we want to be treated. No buttons, just humans. And finally, in Isaac's original plans for the business that he wanted to start, there was always the intention of giving back to those less fortunate. The primary goal of the business was and still is to be financially successful, because that financial success allows giving back. Obviously, if the business doesn't make any money, we can't help anybody. So the idea of using the profits to help others is integral to Subu and has always been incredibly important to Isaac. And in 2004, Isaac was connected with an organization called Solidarity Bridge through an old Subu friend. Solidarity Bridge was and still is running medical missions in Bolivia. They install pacemakers to counter the effects of Chagas. They perform brain surgeries, they fix cleft palates and hair lips. They provide OBGYN surgeries and services, etc., all exclusively for the poorest Bolivians at no charge. After visiting the medical mission sites in Bolivia and seeing the work for himself, Isaac immediately began using Dharma trading to fund open heart surgeries for the poorest children in Bolivia. The thing is, open heart surgery is massively expensive even for Westerners. For the poorest Bolivians, it's simply unattainable. And the heart conditions that these children have are incurable without surgery, and in most cases, if left untreated, are fatal. To date, Dharma has funded over 200 open heart surgeries for infants and children in Bolivia, and you can read all of their stories here on the Dharma Social Project's website. You can also read more about Solidarity Bridge and what they do on their website, and if you feel inclined, you can donate to them and support the medical missions. So that's basically it. I can say that I'm very proud to be a part of this and what my father built. He is the American dream. He came from nothing, built a business from the ground up, never sacrificed his values for profits. And here we are today, 50 years later, with happy employees, a great reputation in the industry, and a successful business that allows us to help others. These are the measures of success, in our opinion, and I'm honored to be a part of it. So thank you very much for letting me tell you a little bit about it. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So, back in the day before the internet, when your dad started doing mail orders, was he, just getting phone calls from people that wanted to order stuff, and then he was packaging that and sending it out with stamps?
Yes, exactly. So before the internet, mail order was what it was called, and he created the first catalogs, if you will, which are really more flyers than anything else. And he mailed them out, and he gave them out to whoever wanted them. And customers would call, he would be on the phone, writing down what they wanted, and then he would go into the back, pick those items, wrap it up, and ship it off.
How do you put it in?
Usually by credit card. And that progressed over the years. I remember that in the 4th Street location, we used to have in the back corner the entire shipping warehouse. And it consisted of 2 people taking the orders from my father in the office and packing the boxes and shipping them out. Now, obviously, we have about 20 people, 25 people doing the same kind of things.
Yeah, well, we've heard about your store in Berkeley and Santa Fe, but it sounds like you have an operation in Petaluma now. I'm curious
That's right.
what it is, where it is. Is it open for retail as well, or is it just a warehouse? Tell us about what you're doing in Petaluma.
Great. So yes, the first store was in Berkeley. The second store was in Santa Fe. We ended up closing the Berkeley location in the late 80s. We used to have our shipping warehouse in the back of the 4th Street location. Grew too big to be there anymore, and so we moved to another location in Santa Fe, and then another location as well. And then in 2010, we had actually maxed out the amount of space we had in Santa Fe. We just didn't have enough room anymore. And in the financial collapse of 2008, pretty much all the office and large industrial warehouse space in the area was on fire set. So we started looking around for a building that could accommodate us, and came to Petaluma, found a space on South Petal Boulevard, and moved our business to there. Since then, the main warehouse operations, which is the majority of the business, exists in that building on South Petal Boulevard. So although we've been a Bay Area business this whole time, we've only been here in Petaluma itself since about 2010.
I have 2 completely unrelated questions.
Excellent.
The first is, what is your most popular product or products? What do you sell the most of? And then the second, why don't you answer that?
Okay. So it's a little bit difficult to answer because we have over 10,000 SKUs, but they're all related into groups, if you will.
Right.
So the most popular item by far would be the fiber reactive dyes, which is,
So you sell the dyes.
right, so we sell blank white clothing, blank white fabric, dyeable yarn, dyeable this, and then we provide the dyes and paints to put the color on them. So the fiber reactive dyes are applicable essentially to all of the other items, and that would be the largest single category, if you will.
Okay, then the second question, given the quality of your customers and your employees. I'm wondering whether or not there are not other, worthwhile charitable organizations above and beyond the Solidarity
Bridge.
That have been lobbied for, in terms of your philanthropic dollar.
Yes, absolutely. there are.
So what are you doing in that regard? Because what you're doing is obviously wonderful, but I have to believe that there's other forces like, well, what about this, what about that?
It's an interesting question. The way I would answer it is this. We've been asked before, why Solidarity Bridge? Why Bolivia? Why not the United States? Why not somewhere here? And the answer to that question essentially comes from Subud and my father Pat, which is to say that he has followed the guidance that he's been given. And to answer that, or another way to say it is, we've worked with what's come to us. Things that have come to us and felt right were the right thing. And in 2004, Juan Hinojosa came to my father. They were old friends. Juan Hinojosa run Solidarity Bridge, or did at the time. And through that connection, we found a path to help. And so we did. Yes, we have several programs that we're working with in Bolivia, not just the heart surgery. But one of the other programs that we started was a cooperative, a sewing cooperative, where the Bolivians would sew garments for us, and we would bring them into the United States and sell them at cost. So by selling them at cost, we reduce the price of them, make them more attainable to our customers, and hopefully provide more business to the Bolivians. Where if they sell a $6 dress, it's a much bigger deal to them than it is, say, to an American company that sells a $6 dress. Yes, sir?
Hi. First of all, unrelated to your product, to your other business, I think it's wonderful that you can actually get a human voice.
Thank you. That's something that's important to us.
Yeah. And second, do you think maybe you do better for charity by focusing rather than dissipating? I mean, you could take 10 cents and give 10 cents to a good cause in the world.
Absolutely. That's another important point, which is that there are innumerable opportunities to help. Innumerable. Everywhere you go, there's something you can do. But if you dissipate your energy, as you say, to try and do everything, you will achieve nothing. So by focusing your energy on one path or certain paths, you have more energy and more power to actually affect change. So I think that's definitely a part of why we do what we do.
I assume, based on sort of the way you guys operate your business, that I probably know the answer to this question, but I'll ask: as far as, firstly, are you guys a B Corp?
We're an S Corp.
You're an S Corp. Do you know what a B Corp is? Do you know what I mean when I ask that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
You will.
Okay.
You will after this. But anyways, I'm happy to talk to you more about that. But do you guys, are the dyes and the materials that you source sustainably manufactured, produced, eco-friendly?
So the answer to that is yes and no. We often are asked for organic products and green-friendly products and so forth. The simple fact is that these products carry a hefty premium. Mm-hmm. So when you sell an organic cotton fabric next to a non-organic cotton fabric, there's essentially no visible difference between the two. They're both cotton fabric, they both will dye, etc. But the non-organic will cost you $5 per yard, whereas the organic fabric will cost you $8 per yard. We've carried both, and resoundingly, our customers choose the non-organic. It's one of these situations we find where people do not put their money where their mouth is. It's a common problem, and although we do carry natural dyes, organic fabrics, and more sustainable products, they don't sell as well as the others. And there's not too much that we can do about that, unfortunately.
I come from an education background, and I used to do tie-dyes in my classroom, and sixth graders would hang these t-shirts, and Rick died.
Yep.
And I had a mom who had just did it with her child, and of course, a year later, the dyes were faded and the t-shirts were worth nothing. So she took me down to Dharma in San Rafael, introduced me to the staff. They did give me a break on pricing so I could transfer into the new products. I did my t-shirts and your dyes, and so then, of course, the color stayed. So
Right.
just wanted to tell you testimony, probably from the 70s. I'm trying to think back when it happened.
The thing is,
70s or 80s.
70s, 90s, 2000s, the dyes haven't changed.
And they lasted. See, we're
Yes, and-
red dyes, you know.
I can tell you more than you've ever wanted to know about why that is. But
Just wanted to know.
yeah, it's very true. RIT dye is very popular, but it doesn't, a lot of it washes out and you'll get faded pastel colors, which are not mine. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So your model is, business model depends upon sales by internet.
Correct.
And you feel that the market is price sensitive when you talk about the organic economy.
Yes.
So when is Amazon going to be a threat to you?
Well, they are currently a threat, to be perfectly honest. Amazon is an interesting animal in that the retail arm of Amazon actually loses money every year. Yeah, it's only supported by their Amazon Web Services server client business. So what this means is, on every package that Amazon ships, generally speaking, they are making almost nothing or they're losing money. How can one compete with a business that literally loses money on their orders? It's challenging. But one of the interesting things about our business is that we have lots of different competitors, but we don't really have any competitor that does everything that we do. So while you can buy certain products from Amazon, you can't buy them all. You can buy this over here, you can buy that over here, but if you come to us, you can buy them all at once. That said, shipping has become a huge problem because it's an added cost, and with the Amazon effect, if you will, no one wants to pay shipping anymore. But, you know, it's kind of ridiculous in a way to think that you can call up a business, have a truck drive over to that business, pick up a package for you, take it back to a facility, put it on a plane, fly it to the opposite side of the country, put it on another truck, and have it driven out to your rural location for free. But that's the business that we live in. So it's a challenging one, but at the moment at least, we're not too concerned about Amazon. Yeah.
So, and that means that Amazon said, will you sell us your product so that we can resell it?
Hmm.
You would say no.
Essentially, yes, we've looked at that because something like 30% of the products you see on Amazon are actually being sold by smaller businesses like us. And then there's two programs. One is that you actually ship your products to Amazon and Amazon fulfills the orders. Or you have the products, Amazon sends you orders and you ship them out. But in all those cases, Amazon's taking a cut of each order. And it makes it challenging to provide a product that can compete with a lot of that. And so what we do is we prefer just to take it ourselves. We're able to control the whole process. And it seems to work out better.
So you said that you are now, you know, you've been growing, you've been successful. You said you were expanding into Australia and England. How have you gone about that, and to what do you attribute your ability to get into, you know, markets across
Sure.
the sea?
It's actually a lot easier than you might imagine because when you're working with carriers like UPS, FedEx, they already have distribution networks across the board.
Yeah, but you have to the customers in England and Australia have to know about Dharma trading. How do you?
Word of mouth is honestly the biggest reason. We have sort of an eclectic group of products and all under one roof. And we are well known throughout the textile craft industry. So while we've done some advertising in UK and Australian magazines and so forth, and Google advertising is a huge advertising medium. Beyond that, it's word of mouth. And interestingly enough, Australia recently passed a law that imposed a sales tax on foreign imports below $1,000. And that's been a problem because it's made our products more expensive, and we've lost about 20% of our Australian business. Which is an interesting segue into a current problem in the United States, which is they are now imposing sales tax on out-of-state sales. It's a little bit of a mess, but essentially what it means is the advantage of ordering online from an out-of-state business used to be that you would not pay the sales tax. And that is slowly, very quickly going away. It's going to change the market once again.
I'm curious if there's anything in particular that you think you do that keeps your employees so happy. I would imagine it's pay, benefits, appreciation, all of those things, but is there something in particular?
Well, I guess the way I would answer that is, yes, it's the things that you've mentioned, it's the pay, the benefits, and so forth, but it's more the culture in the workplace. So Isaac, very early on, determined that he did not want to have the kind of business where getting up in the morning, he was hesitant to go to work or feeling stressed about going in because it was an uncomfortable situation. So he's always endeavored to create a work environment that's relaxed, where there's no one watching you, you're not looking over your shoulders. People can be who they are. We have no dress code. We have people covered in tattoos. We're willing to give people who've been through treatment programs a shot, what have you. And I guess that would be the thing, I would say. Keep them happy. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes, so we have customers ranging all the way from grandmothers that want to tie-dye couple baby socks. Which, by the way, if you have grandchildren, you put them in tie-dye baby socks and you won't regret it. But we also have large customers, institutional-sized customers. One of the things I like to say is, if you ever saw the movie Troy with Brad Pitt and whatnot, if you recall, all the Trojans wore various shades of blue. Well, all the blue dye came from us. So we work with, for example, Cirque du Soleil buys a lot of products from us at times. Costuming is kind of a big deal, and they make all their own stuff. Our customers range quite a bit. Yes?
Do you guys ever offer like how-to classes in your San Rafael store?
We do. San Rafael store is a slightly different model than the e-commerce business, if you will. And they do run tie-dye and various fabric design classes, as well as they have knitting and crochet assistance on every Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Most of you, since you moved here, like the last 10 years, your warehouse, is most of your workforce local Petalumans, or are they all over the North Bay?
Mostly all over the North Bay. When we were moving, I actually went and mapped out the home locations of all of our employees. And it made a big C shape around Petaluma. We did that because, honestly, traffic and commute times are a factor in people's satisfaction with their job. So we had the option to move to Richmond, but in looking at where all of our employees were living, a lot of them were living in the North Bay. It didn't seem right to have them come down and cross the bridge all the way over to Richmond. And for other reasons, Petaluma seemed like the right place.
Okay, I'll try your last question. That is, we had a great chance to talk. It's wonderful to get to know you. And tell us a little bit about your history with the company. I imagine you've gone from different departments, obviously. Yeah. You know the whole company right now. Sure. I'm kind of curious on that. And then tell us about your passions like flying helicopters, how that might help.
So obviously I've been around the business my whole life. Grew up with my father running the business. So my first job title was pick up all the stuff off the floor. Literally. And I wasn't given a broom or a dustpan. It was just like, pick up everything off the floor. So I've done every job pretty much that exists at the business. In high school, I would work in the warehouse in the summers, picking and packing orders. And then after college, I actually moved to Tahoe and became a bartender, which my father was not particularly happy about. After spending all this money, I did education, and I went off and became a bartender. Right. But then in 2003, I moved back to the Bay and went to work full time. And I started out as the assistant inventory manager, and just slowly over time kept taking on more responsibilities. And at this point, I'm what you would call the general manager. Essentially, I've taken over the management of the business on a day-to-day basis. And my passion, as you say, I've recently got interested in flying helicopters. It was kind of a random experience. I took a helicopter tour in Hawaii, and it was a lot of fun. And I had a friend who was a fixed-wing pilot, and I thought, oh, what the heck, I'll learn how to fly helicopters. So I went up to Santa Rosa to Sonoma Helico, and took an introductory flight. And, here's this 20-year-old kid hops in the driver's seat and takes you off in a helicopter, and says, all right, what I'm going to do is give you the controls one at a time. And so he gave me the stick, and as soon as I touched the stick, the whole helicopter rotated to the right, and it was looking 500 feet down to the ground. It was really exciting and really terrifying all at the same time. And so I just thought, I'm in a place where I can do this. I have the time, and so I kept going. And at this point, I've got about 20 hours of flight time, and I'm on my way. And I figured I'd keep doing it until either it's not fun anymore or I get a license as a pilot. So that's what I've been doing with my time.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been great. Awesome. Really good. Thank you so much for being here.